You know what really gets under my perfectly manicured nails? Watching someone throw away their chance at wealth because they are making the same tired mistakes over and over again. A recent survey revealed that 126.5 million Americans admit to making significant financial mistakes at least once in their lifetime. But honey, some people make these mistakes every single day without even realizing it. Listen, I am Duchess Dollars, and before you roll your eyes and think this is another rich woman lecturing you, let me be crystal clear about something. I was not always dripping in diamonds and sipping champagne on my private jet. I was once, just like you, making excuses instead of making money. The difference? I learned to stop being my own worst enemy. My parents worked so hard to get rich that I was born tired, but even I had to learn these lessons the hard way. At 35 years old with the face of a 20-year-old, I can tell you that looking young is not enough if your bank account looks ancient. You need to understand that being broke is not a personality trait. It is a temporary condition that becomes permanent when you refuse to change your behavior. Today, we are diving into the 8 biggest mistakes that keep people broke. And trust me, if you recognize yourself in any of these, it is time for some serious self-reflection. These are not just my opinions. These are patterns I see repeated by millions of Americans who wonder why they cannot get ahead financially. And honey, I am not here to sugarcoat anything because sugar is expensive and you probably cannot afford it if you are making these mistakes. But first, let me tell you something that might shock you. Even people making good money are struggling. Nearly 64% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, which means that even if you think you are doing okay, you might be one emergency away from financial disaster. The Federal Reserve found that 35% of adults said their finances were worse compared to a year earlier, the highest number since they started tracking this data in 2012. So whether you are making minimum wage or making 6 figures, these mistakes can destroy your financial future faster than you can say designer handbag. I should know because I used to make some of these mistakes myself before I married Mr. Millionaire and learned how the wealthy really think about money. Mistake number 1, living in denial about your financial reality. The first and most dangerous mistake poor people make is refusing to admit they are poor. Listen, darling, denial is not just a river in Egypt. It is also the fastest way to stay broke forever. Nearly half of high-income consumers today are living paycheck to paycheck, which means even people making good money are financially struggling. But instead of facing reality, they are out here buying $1,200 sneakers when they make less than $2,000 per month. Honey, I see you. You are the one financing a Louis Vuitton bag, while your savings account has $17.63. You are buying designer clothes on credit cards because you think looking rich is the same as being rich. Newsflash. It is not. Looking rich while being poor is like putting lipstick on a pig. Pig might look prettier, but it is still a pig. I had a friend who worked at Starbucks making $12 per hour but insisted on carrying a $2,000 Chanel bag that she bought on a payment plan. She was paying $300 per month for a bag while living in a studio apartment that cost $1,500 per month. Meanwhile, her savings account had $0 and her credit score was in the basement. When I was building my wealth, I had to face some uncomfortable truths about my spending. I was not buying Hermes bags. I was buying clearance items and investing the difference. While my friends were posting Instagram photos with their new purchases, I was posting screenshots of my investment portfolio growing. Because, honey, compound interest is way more attractive than compound debt. The psychological reason behind this is simple. People often ignore their credit score and overall financial health, which creates a cycle of poor decision-making. Thus, average credit score for people in the lowest income bracket is 594, which means they pay higher interest rates on everything from car loans to mortgages. You cannot fix what you refuse to acknowledge is broken. Here is what wealthy people know that poor people do not. True luxury is not owing anyone anything. True luxury is having options. True luxury is being able to walk away from any situation because you have money in the bank. A fake designer bag does not give you any of those things. Mistake number 2, shopping without a strategy. Not adhering to a budget is a great way to run out of money every month, and poor people are masters at impulse purchasing. They walk into Target for toilet paper and walk out with $300 worth of items they did not need. It is like going grocery shopping when you are hungry, except you are always hungry for things you cannot afford. Let me paint you a picture. You are at the mall, minding your business, when you see a leather jacket in the window. It costs $200. You try it on, fall in love, and buy it immediately. You get home and realize you could have gotten the same jacket online for $150. But it gets worse because now you have spent half of your discretionary income for the month on something you did not even plan to buy. But wait, there is more. 3 weeks later, you see that same jacket on sale for $99 at another store. Now you feel stupid, but you are stuck with your impulse purchase because you cannot return it. This is exactly how poor people stay poor, one unplanned purchase at a time. Just $25 per week spent on dining out costs you $1,300 per year. That fancy coffee habit? If you spend $5 per day on coffee, that is $1,825 per year. Imagine what that money could do in an investment account instead of funding your caffeine addiction. I know someone who spends $40 per week at Target on random things she does not need. That is over $2,000 per year on impulse purchases. If she invested that money instead at 7% annual return, she would have over $28,000 after 10 years. But no, she needs that cute throw pillow and those scented candles. The wealthy do not shop, they strategically acquire. Every purchase is planned, researched, and intentional. When I want something, I put it on a list and wait 30 days. If I still want it after 30 days and it fits my budget, then I consider buying it. Most of the time, I forget about it completely because it was just a momentary desire, not a real need. Rich people understand that every dollar spent on unnecessary items is a dollar that cannot be invested in their future. Poor people think every dollar earned should be spent immediately, preferably on something that makes them feel better about being poor. Mistake number 3, housing yourself into poverty. Here is where most people completely destroy their financial future before they even get started. They spend the maximum amount they can afford on housing instead of choosing something modest that allows them to invest. This is like buying the most expensive car you can afford and then wondering why you cannot afford gas. Many people have big eyes when it comes to purchasing a home, but they forget that the house payment is just the beginning. You also have property taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities, and all the fancy furniture you think you need to fill your oversized space. Then there is the HOA fee, the lawn care, the pest control, and the inevitable repairs that come with home ownership. I know a woman who makes $4,000 per month and rents an apartment for $2,000 because she wants to live in the trendy part of town. After taxes, she takes home about $3,000, which means 2/3 of her income goes to rent. Add utilities, insurance, and renter fees, and she has maybe $500 left for everything else. That includes food, transportation, entertainment, and savings. Spoiler alert, there are no savings. Meanwhile, she could rent a perfectly nice place for $1,200 in a slightly less trendy area and have an extra $800 every month to invest. Over 10 years, that $800 invested monthly at 7% growth becomes over $130,000. But no, she needs the Instagram-worthy apartment with the exposed brick walls and rooftop access. Let me tell you about my friend Sarah. She bought a house for $400,000 with a monthly payment of $2,800. She thought she could afford it because the bank approved her. What she did not realize is that banks do not care about your financial goals. They only care about whether you can make the minimum payment without defaulting. After the mortgage, property taxes, insurance, and maintenance, Sarah was spending over $3,500 per month on housing. She had no money left for investing, no emergency fund, and was constantly stressed about money. When her air conditioning broke, she had to put the $5,000 repair on a credit card because she had no savings. Compare that to my other friend Jessica, who bought a modest house for $250,000 with a payment of $1,800 per month. She invests the difference and now has over $200,000 in her investment accounts after 8 years. When her water heater broke, she paid cash for the replacement and still had money left over. 20 years from now, Sarah will still be house poor while Jessica will be financially free. The difference is that Jessica understood that your house should be a place to live, not a place to go broke. But no, Sarah needed the Instagram-worthy kitchen with granite countertops and stainless steel appliances that she barely uses. Mistake number 4, lifestyle inflation. Trap. Lifestyle creep is a common money mistake where people increase their spending as their income increases. This is how people making 6 figures still live paycheck to paycheck. It is like being on a treadmill that speeds up every time you get comfortable. Let me tell you about my friend Marcus. When he was 22 and making $30,000 per year, he lived with roommates and drove a used Honda. He was broke but optimistic. His monthly expenses were maybe $1,500, so he had some money left over for fun. By 25, he was making $50,000. Instead of investing the extra money, he moved into his own apartment and upgraded his car payment. His monthly expenses jumped to $3,000. He justified it by saying he could afford it, but he was still not saving any money. At 28, He got promoted to $75,000 per year. Did he invest the extra money? Of course not. He moved to a better neighborhood and leased a BMW. His monthly expenses were now $4,500. Still no savings. By 30, he was making $90,000 and still had no savings, because every raise came with a lifestyle upgrade. He had gone from living on $1,500 per month to living on $6,000 per month, but his net worth was exactly the same, zero. Meanwhile, I know another person who started at $30,000 and is now making $90,000. But instead of upgrading his lifestyle, he kept living like he makes $30,000 and invests the difference. He now has over $300,000 in investments and is on track to retire by 45. The difference between these two people is not intelligence or opportunity. It is understanding that your lifestyle should not grow at the same rate as your income. When you get a salary increase, make sure you have a plan for any increases rather than automatically upgrading your standard of living. Here is what rich people do differently. They increase their investments first, then maybe, possibly, consider upgrading their lifestyle. Poor people do the opposite. They upgrade their lifestyle first and wonder why they never have money to invest. Take that extra money and invest it before you get used to spending it. Because once you upgrade your lifestyle, it is almost impossible to downgrade without feeling like you are going backwards. But honey, staying broke is going backwards too, just in a different direction. Mistake number 5, credit card catastrophe. Credit card debt was the most common financial regret among Americans, and I can see why. Poor people treat credit cards like magic money instead of borrowed money that costs them dearly. They swipe that card like they are casting a spell, but the only magic happening is the disappearing act their money performs every month. The median interest rate across all credit cards was 24.62% in June 2024. That means if you carry a balance, you are paying almost 25% interest annually. To put that in perspective, if you put $1,000 on your credit card and only make minimum payments, you will pay over $2,500 total by the time you pay it off. That is like buying a $1,000 purse, and then paying another $1,500 just for the privilege of carrying it. I know someone who has been paying the minimum on a $3,000 credit card balance for over 10 years. She has paid more than $5,000 in interest alone, but still owes $2,500 on the original balance. She could have bought a decent used car with the money she has wasted on interest payments. But here is where it gets really scary. Many poor people have multiple credit cards, all carrying balances. I met a woman who had 8 credit cards with a total balance of $47,000. Her minimum monthly payments were over $1,200, and she was only paying interest. She will never pay off those cards unless she changes her strategy completely. The rule for credit cards is simple. Only spend money you already have in your bank account. If you cannot pay the full balance when the statement arrives, you cannot afford whatever you bought. Period. End of discussion. No exceptions. I use credit cards for the rewards and the consumer protection, but I pay them off completely every month. I have never paid a single dollar in credit card interest because I treat my credit card like a debit card. The only exception is when I can get 0% financing for a specific period, and even then, I have the cash to pay it off immediately if needed. Credit cards should make you money through rewards, not cost you money through interest. If you cannot follow this rule, cut up your cards and use cash until you develop some self-control. Because honey, if you cannot control your spending with a credit card, you are not mature enough to have one. Here is what wealthy people understand. Credit cards are a tool, not a solution. They use them strategically to build credit, earn rewards, and protect their purchases. Poor people use them as a way to buy things they cannot afford, which is exactly how you stay poor forever. Mistake number 6, the inability to say no. Poor people have the hardest time with one simple 3-letter word, no. They cannot say no to friends who want to go out when they are broke. They cannot say no to family members who want to borrow money. They cannot say no to themselves when they see something they want. Saying no requires backbone, and apparently, backbones are more expensive than most people can afford. Lending money to friends or family members who never paid them back was a surprising financial regret for many Americans. Every time you lend money to someone, you are betting your financial future on their character and financial discipline. And honey, if they had good financial discipline, they would not need to borrow money from you. Let me tell you about my friend Rachel. Her sister called crying because she needed $400 for rent. Rachel lent her the money, even though she had to use her emergency fund. 2 months later, the sister had not paid her back, but she was posting photos from a weekend trip to Miami on Instagram. When Rachel asked about the money, her sister got defensive and said Rachel was being materialistic. If your cousin asks to borrow $300 for rent and you lend it to her, you have just given her your power. Now you are emotionally invested in her financial decisions. When she does not pay you back, you feel awkward asking for your money. When she does pay you back, she might ask again next month. Either way, you lose. But it gets worse. Poor people cannot say no to social pressure either. Their friends invite them to expensive restaurants when they cannot afford it, but they go anyway because they do not want to seem cheap. They go to bachelor parties in Las Vegas when they should be paying off debt. They buy expensive wedding gifts when they are living paycheck to paycheck. I have a friend who spent $2,000 on a destination wedding when she had less than $500 in savings. She put the flight, hotel, and gift on credit cards because she did not want to miss her friend's wedding. Now she is paying interest on someone else's party for the next 3 years. The wealthy protect their money fiercely. They understand that every dollar given away is a dollar that cannot be invested in their future. If someone needs financial help, that is what jobs, budgets, and financial planning are for. Rich people do not feel guilty about having boundaries with their money. Learn to say no without explaining yourself. No is a complete sentence. You do not owe anyone an explanation for protecting your financial future. Your broke relatives and friends will survive without your money, but you will not survive without your boundaries. Mistake number 7. Comparison shopping for misery. Financial mistakes can have a deleterious effect on many aspects of life, including mental health and relationships. Poor people spend too much time comparing their financial situation to others instead of focusing on their own progress. They are like runners who spend so much time looking at other runners that they trip over their own feet. You see your college friend posting photos from her vacation to Italy, and suddenly you feel terrible about your weekend camping trip. You see your neighbor buy a new car, and your perfectly functional vehicle feels inadequate. You see someone your age buying a house, and you feel like a failure for renting. This is the comparison trap, and it is designed to keep you broke. Stop it, right now. Comparison is the thief of joy and the destroyer of wealth-building momentum. Plus, social media is a highlight reel, not reality. That friend posting from Italy might have charged the entire trip to credit cards. That neighbor with the new car might have a 7-year loan at 12% interest. That young homebuyer might have no emergency fund and is one missed paycheck away from foreclosure. I know someone who felt so bad about her friend's expensive lifestyle that she took out a personal loan to go on vacation with them. She spent $8,000 on a trip to Europe because she did not want to be left out. Now she is paying $400 per month for the next 2 years for 1 week of vacation. Meanwhile, her friends who went on the trip had family money and trust funds that she did not know about. Everyone has different starting points, different advantages, and different priorities. Maybe your parents paid for your college, or maybe you are still paying student loans. Maybe you inherited money, or maybe you are supporting elderly parents. Maybe you live in an expensive city because of your career, or maybe you chose to stay in a low-cost area near family. Focus on your own financial goals and celebrate your own progress. If you invested $50 this month when you could not invest anything last month, that is growth. If you paid off $100 of debt, that is progress. If you said no to an expensive night out, that is wisdom. The only person you should compare yourself to is who you were yesterday. Are you making better financial decisions today than you were a year ago? Are you more financially literate now than you were 6 months ago? Are you building wealth, even slowly, instead of going deeper into debt? Those are the only comparisons that matter. Rich people understand that wealth building is not a competition with others. It is a commitment to yourself. They focus on their own financial goals and do not waste mental energy worrying about what other people are doing with their money. Because, honey, you cannot build wealth while you are busy watching other people spend theirs. Mistake number 8, refusing to invest in knowledge. The final and perhaps most damaging mistake poor people make is refusing to learn new skills or acquire knowledge that could increase their earning potential. Failing to put money in a retirement account is one of the most common poor financial decisions, but failing to invest in yourself is even worse. It is like having a smartphone but only using it to make phone calls. You cannot expect different results while doing the same things. If you want to earn more money, you need to become more valuable in the marketplace. This means learning new skills, getting certifications, improving your communication abilities, or developing expertise in areas that pay well. But poor people think learning stops when they graduate from high school or college. I see people spending hours watching reality television, but claiming they do not have time to learn about investing. They know every detail about celebrity drama, but cannot explain the difference between a Roth IRA and a traditional IRA. They can recite sports statistics from memory, but do not know their own credit score. Let me tell you about two people I know. Both started working at the same company 5 years ago, making $40,000 per year. Person A goes home every night and watches Netflix until bedtime. Person B spends 1 hour every evening learning new skills relevant to their industry. Today, Person A still makes $42,000 per year after a few small raises. Person B now makes $78,000 per year because they invested in themselves. They took online courses, got industry certifications, attended EASE, webinars, and read books about their field. When promotion opportunities came up, Person B was the obvious choice. The difference between them is not luck or connections. It is the understanding that your current skill set got you your current results. If you want better results, you need better skills. But here's what really frustrates me about poor people. They will spend $50 on a night out but complain about spending $50 on a course that could change their career. They will buy a $300 outfit but refuse to invest in a certification that could increase their salary by $10,000 per year. The earlier you get started in life with learning and investing, the better off you will be. Every day you delay learning about money is a day you fall further behind. Every month you do not invest in yourself is a month your competition gets ahead of you. Read books, listen to podcasts, take online courses, attend seminars. Invest in yourself first, and the money will follow. Knowledge is the only asset that cannot be stolen, taxed, or lost in a market crash. Plus, once you learn something valuable, you own it forever. Rich people understand that their education never stops. They are constantly learning, growing, and adapting to changes in their industry. They know that what got them here will not necessarily get them there. Poor people think they know everything they need to know, which is exactly why they stay poor, and the money will follow. Knowledge is the only asset that cannot be stolen, taxed, or lost in a market crash. The casino connection. Why gambling keeps you poor. Before we wrap up, let me address something that devastates poor people more than anything else. Gambling. About 75% of adults in the U.S. have gambled at least once in the past year, and U.S. gamblers lost $120 billion in 2021. That is billion with a B, darling. To put that in perspective, that is more money than most countries spend on their entire annual budget. But here is what really gets me fired up about gambling. It specifically targets poor people. State lottery retailers are disproportionately grouped in lower-income communities. The average adult in the U.S. spent roughly $320 on lottery tickets in 2019. For someone making minimum wage, that is almost 2 weeks of work spent on a mathematical impossibility. I only gamble if the prize is a millionaire husband or a private island. Otherwise, my darling, I prefer to bet on myself. The difference between me and you gambling is that I gamble with other people. Money. If I lose, tough luck for Mr. Millionaire. But seriously, the house always wins, and you are not the house. The only casino that interests me is Monte Carlo, because there, if you lose, at least you lose with class, champagne, and a Dior dress. You want to play the lottery? Honey, you already lost when you were born poor. Now you have to play the entrepreneurship game. Let me tell you something about casinos that they do not want you to know. The slot machine odds are often some of the worst, ranging from a 1 in 5,000 to 1 in about 34 million chance of winning the top prize when using maximum coin play. You have a better chance of being struck by lightning twice than winning a major lottery jackpot. I do not gamble because I prefer certainty. And certainty, my dear, is inheritance, signed contracts, and joint accounts with a CEO. Gambling is like trusting an ugly guy. You know it will end badly, but you persist anyway. Then you cry and still end up without a new purse. Here is what happens to problem gamblers. They stop paying on credit cards, mortgages, auto loans, and student loans, trying to compensate for losses. About 5 million adults meet the criteria as problem gamblers, and unfortunately, their losses make up a quarter of the profits for casinos. They are literally funding the casino industry with their desperation. Casinos are entertainment for people who have not learned that the biggest stroke of luck is a stable relationship with someone on the Forbes list. I do not gamble, sweetheart. I invest. And the best investment is always a good relationship with someone who is already rich. But if you absolutely must gamble, here are my rules. Only gamble money you can afford to lose completely. Set a strict time limit, never chase losses, and never borrow money to gamble. Better yet, take that gambling money and put it in an index fund. At least there, your money has a chance to grow instead of disappearing into the casino owner's yacht fund. Your wealth-building action plan. Now that we have identified these 8 wealth-destroying mistakes, what are you going to do about it? Knowledge without action is just expensive entertainment, and honey, you have had enough expensive entertainment in your life. First, if you want to stop being poor and start building wealth, you need to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Every week, I share strategies that will help you think like the wealthy instead of like the broke. This channel is your MBA and millionaire mindset, and tuition is free. Second, give this video a thumbs up if you are serious about changing your financial future. The algorithm needs to know that you are ready to level up, not just window shopping for financial advice you will never implement. Third, I have left several links in the first pinned comment to products that rich people use. These are not random affiliate links. These are carefully curated tools that will help you build wealth faster. Rich people do not waste time researching every little thing. They buy quality tools and get to work. Fourth, here is your homework. And yes, I am giving you homework because this is not an entertainment channel. This is a wealth building boot camp. Go through each of these 8 mistakes and honestly assess which ones apply to you. Write them down. Be brutally honest with yourself because lying to yourself is what got you here in the first place. Then create a specific plan to address each one. Do not try to fix everything at once because that is how people fail. Commit to addressing 1 mistake per month. If you are making all 8 mistakes, it will take you 8 months to fix your financial life. That might seem like a long time, but it beats spending the next 8 years making the same mistakes. Start with the mistake that is costing you the most money right now. If you are paying 24% interest on credit card debt, that should be your priority. If you are spending too much on housing, start looking for a cheaper place. If you are an impulse shopper, cut up your credit cards today. Remember, the goal is not to stay comfortable in your current financial situation. Comfort is what keeps poor people poor. The goal is to become so financially secure that money is never a source of stress again. The goal is to have options, to have freedom, to have the ability to say no to anything that does not serve your highest good. But here is what I need you to understand. Changing your financial life requires changing your identity. You cannot keep thinking like a poor person and expect to become rich. You need to start thinking like someone who has money, even before you have money. Rich people do not make financial decisions based on emotion. They do not buy things to feel better. They do not lend money to family members who are financially irresponsible. They do not compare themselves to other people on social media. They focus on their goals. They educate themselves constantly, and they make decisions that their future self will thank them for. The harsh truth about being poor. Let me leave you with this final thought, and I want you to really hear this because it might be the most important thing I say in this entire video. Being poor is expensive. Poor people pay more for everything because they cannot afford to buy quality items that last. They pay interest on credit cards. They pay fees for being broke. They pay rent instead of building equity. They pay for expensive car repairs because they cannot afford reliable vehicles. Being poor means paying $5 for a money order instead of having free checking. Being poor means paying late fees because you do not have enough money in your account when bills are due. Being poor means buying cheap shoes that fall apart in 6 months instead of quality shoes that last for years. Poor people shop at stores that charge more because they do not have transportation to better stores. They cannot buy in bulk to save money because they do not have storage space or upfront cash. They cannot take advantage of sales because they do not have disposable income. Being poor means you cannot invest in opportunities when they arise. You cannot help your children with college. You cannot take care of your parents when they get older. You cannot retire with dignity. Being poor limits every single choice you make for the rest of your life. But being rich, on the other hand, is like having a permanent discount on life. When you have money, you can buy quality items on sale and use them for years. You can pay cash and negotiate better deals. You can invest money and watch it grow instead of watching it disappear to fees and interest. Rich people get better interest rates on mortgages. They get better insurance rates. They get access to investment opportunities that poor people never even hear about. They can afford financial advisors, tax professionals, and lawyers who save them money in the long run. When you have money, you have time. You do not spend hours comparing prices or looking for deals. You do not waste time on public transportation or waiting in line for government services. You do not stress about money, which means you can focus on more important things like family, health, and personal growth. The choice is yours, and it really is that simple. You can keep making these 8 mistakes and stay exactly where you are financially, or you can face reality, make changes, and start building the wealth you deserve. But the clock is ticking, honey. Every day you wait is another day you fall further behind. I am not here to coddle you or make you feel better about your financial situation. I am here to tell you the truth, even when it hurts. The truth is that your financial problems are probably your own fault. The truth is that you have more control over your financial future than you think. The truth is that excuses will not pay your bills or build your wealth. Money builds character. But here is what I also want you to know. I believe in you. I believe that you can change your financial situation if you are willing to do the work. I believe that you can stop making these mistakes and start making decisions that your future self will thank you for. When I look back at my own journey, I remember feeling overwhelmed by all the things I needed to change. But I started with one small step, then another, then another. I stopped trying to look rich and started trying to become rich. I stopped comparing myself to other people and started focusing on my own goals. Most importantly, I stopped making excuses and started taking responsibility for my financial future. Because here is what wealthy people understand that poor people do not. Your current financial situation is not permanent unless you choose to make it permanent. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are not powerless. You are not destined to be poor forever. But you also are not going to become rich by accident. Wealth building requires intention, discipline, and consistency. It requires making choices that other people will not make so you can have a life that other people cannot have. Comment below with this phrase if you enjoyed this video. Money builds character. I want to see how many of you are ready to take your finances seriously instead of just dreaming about being rich while making poor people decisions. Do not forget to subscribe if you want to learn how to be rich instead of just playing dress up with fake designer bags. Hit that notification bell so you never miss my latest wealth building strategies because I drop financial gems every single week. And remember, darling, I am not just teaching you about money. I am teaching you about power. Money is power. Money is freedom. Money is options. Money is the difference between living life on your own terms and living life according to other people's rules. Until next time, remember, the easiest way to get rich is to be born rich or marry a millionaire. If you are not that lucky, like me, you have to create your own wealth. I love being rich, and I think you should try it too. But trying it means actually doing the work, not just watching videos about doing the work. Stop being a financial tourist and start being a wealth builder. Stop making excuses and start making money. Stop waiting for someone to save you and start saving yourself. Stay fabulous, stay focused, and most importantly, stay wealthy-minded even when your bank account does not reflect it yet. This is Duchess Dollars, and I will see you in the next video where we will discuss why your broke friends are sabotaging your success without even realizing it. Trust me, you do not want to miss that one, because the people around you have more influence on your financial future than you think. Ciao, darlings. And remember, poverty is a mindset, wealth is a choice, and I just gave you the roadmap to make the right choice.